I take notes while we talk.
Me too. I
just
love it.
I just want to make sure I don't forget a question I want to ask or, something like that. I like to be pretty laid back, conversational, all that kind of good stuff.
I totally get it.
So we didn't meet in a conventional way. I think actually someone recommended you to me.
Right. Yeah. I don't remember who, but yes.
Yes. I would love to know, when we got introduced, what's one of the things that after we met, you were like, yes, I want to be on this podcast. I think this is a good place for me to share my story.
Well, I would just say you. More than willing to listen to the story in its entirety and digging deeper into all of the areas versus just kind of a shallow conversation.
I appreciate you saying that. That's so important to me because when you stay shallow and stay on the surface, where's the opportunity for breakthrough? Where's the opportunity to learn, to grow, to get something actionable out of that conversation? I think that people sharing their story of overcoming, my intention is for others to be like, oh, that was so good. Like, I know what it's like to feel that way or to experience something similar and because this person did this, now maybe I can take an action, right? My hope is for actionable impact, positive actionable impact on the other side for the listeners. So yeah, I love that you said that. I appreciate that. Oh, that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
You're so cute.
To make sure I had tea, I've been on calls since 7:00 this morning.
What kind of tea do you drink?
This is throat coat tea.
Ah, yes.
Right now, just to
throat healthy.
Support my vocal cords and the inflammation and all that from talking all day. This morning, I started out with honey vanilla chamomile. Nice. Just start my day chill and calm.
I love it.
Wednesdays are usually very heavy with conversations. I try to get all of my meetings together as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking could definitely wear you out for sure. 100%. Energy wise and physically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And for me,
sometimes at the end of my days, it's like, don't ask me any questions. Like, I'm not using my brain anymore.
Yeah. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, I've been sitting here talking to people all day. I am energized and I'm pumped and I'm like, can I talk some more? For me, it's the doing for others is what wipes me out. If I'm like implementing and do it for you kind of work, and which is why I actually got rid of that in my business.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I completely cut out the consulting and do it for you. And now it's coaching and do it with you. And
great awareness there.
Mm-hmm. And it's great like I'm equally a visionary and what's the other word? Integrator. Yeah. 2% off. One's a 49, one's a 51. And what I found is I can do the work. That's ingrained in me. But naturally, I'm a visionary. And when it comes to doing for myself, for my family, like personal life side of things, absolutely. If it's my job, no problem. When it comes to doing for others in the capacity of a consultant or VA work or OBM or any of that kind of level, it drains me so fast. A couple hours and I'm done. So it's just really, it's so important to like have that awareness of why are you so drained? Is it because you have no heart and passion for what you're doing? Or is it really because it's not serving you as your creation and how you are, like what is natural for you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Miss Sabrina. I'm so excited. I think I'm procrastinating a little bit because I'm like so pumped for your conversation. And I know a bit of what you've shared about your story. And so I think I'm like preparing my emotions, preparing myself because, there's just it's a very powerful story and intense. And you just share it so graciously. And I just kind of want to give us some space. I guess I'm just trying to give us space to just kind of like, I think I'm trying to give me space to prepare. You're like, I'm good, let's go. And I'm sitting here going, let's just talk some more.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think a lot of it is just, it really has become, and this is such a testament to what people can have if they choose,
Mm,
is disconnecting from it. I mean, you can get to it. It sounds so crazy. Like if you would have told me this 10 years ago, I'd be like, screw you. Um, but it's such a, not that I'm not still passionate about it and still can tell the story with, vigor and room, but it's a story. I mean, it really is a story.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for you, it's a story that you've already lived, you've already recovered and healed from.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's like watching a movie, right? I watch a movie, it's the first time, and I experience it and I have all these emotions. And every time I watch it, because I already know what's going to happen, I've already heard it, the emotions are different for me. I
Yeah.
don't experience it the same way. And for me, we've chatted a bit and I've heard a bit of your story. And for me, I'm hearing this story right now. I'm experiencing emotionalizing all of that as where you're telling it from a very different place than what I'm hearing it from. And so I think that's really where I'm preparing myself, right? Because I've already cried like on 3 different calls today because I am so like, it's so important that I'm someone that disconnects. But lately, interestingly, my physical therapist has me doing an exercise that has really reconnected me with my physical self, with
Wow.
my emotions. And it's just exhausting to feel all these things all the time when I really don't want to. And so I recognize that I'm going into situations and approaching things, conversations like this, even very differently. Very, very differently. So yeah. But I am looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this story and for my audience to hear who you have become and how you have moved through this to empower them to do the same for themselves. I like, yes. So yeah. Anyway,
Before we get started, because I'm always looking, because I do podcasting too. How are you changing the way you are approaching your guests now compared to previously?
so this is the first year I've done guest episodes. When I got started in September, just a few months ago, like today's the last day of recording for 2023. So I've recorded a lot of episodes and met with a lot of people. And what I have done differently now, as opposed to when I started, is I'm going to review the agreement, right? I'm going to review things, make sure we're on the same page. Before I just kind of rambled everything off and jumped in. I kind of let them control everything because I didn't really know what I was doing.
Got it.
Right. I give space for us to have whatever conversation they want to have from the beginning, because I love what one of my guests calls the bookend of the podcast, like the before and after conversation, things that get sparked, things that happen. But I think that's the only difference. Everything else has been very, I know what I want this to feel like. I know my intention for this series. My guest series for 2023 is all about sharing a story of overcoming. It's not about anything formal, not business, it's not that professional level, in a sense that people are coming in to take notes to be like, what do I do? What do I do? And so my approach is very casual, classy and casual.
Right.
I want everyone to feel like they can be themselves. I want to be myself. I'm someone who tends to meet people where they are. So some podcasts, I am super bubbly and all that kind of stuff. And others, I'm really chill, laid back, because I have a variance of emotions and expressions and how I show up in different situations. But I just trust myself and let myself be true to me. But that was the only thing I really changed, was before recording, going over that stuff, making sure we have everything, because I was finding after the fact I'd have to email, hey, I don't have this. Hey, I don't see this. Can you resend it to me? It's not working. I just want to verify everything up front now when we jump on the podcast, as opposed to doing everything on the back end after the podcast is over and all of that. The other thing I've done, one challenge I have when it comes to guests is my part, providing them assets so they can market the podcast before it launches.
Oh yeah.
I don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I just now finished out what dates people are going to be being released, but it changes based on certain things that I've had to adjust, or I'm not able to get the podcast out in time. Most everything is revolved around the behind the scenes for me on how I approach the podcast in general. Not much is different on how I approach my guests up front, but that's only because I really knew what I wanted out of this specific series. Will it change moving forward? I've already got some ideas of other guest opportunities I want to do moving forward. Will I approach it different? Probably not. Just the purpose of the podcast is going to be different, but I think I still want to approach it in this casual, laid back, let's have a conversation. Let's not make the production be more important than the content.
Awesome.
I appreciate that question. That's a good question for me for evaluation and where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm always learning. So
all of us are, right? If we're not learning, there's a problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
All righty. Well, let's get into it. I will go ahead and introduce the podcast, make myself look somewhat put together today. Make it look like I haven't been sitting here for, what is it now, 7 hours. I think that's the highest my light goes. That's not too bad. Okay. Ready?
I was born ready.
Welcome to today's episode of the Walking With You podcast. Oh, no, I got to start over. I have a question for you. I have your name. See, this is why I should have asked this in the beginning. I forgot to add it to my list. How do you want to be introduced? Sabrina Victoria? Sabrina, a last name?
Sabrina Victoria.
Okay, perfect. I need to remember all these episodes, and I still keep forgetting to ask that question before I jump in. Okay, perfect. Hi, and welcome to today's episode of the Walking With You podcast. I'm your host, Dina Adams, and today we are speaking with Sabrina Victoria. I got introduced with to Sabrina through a mutual connection, and we had an incredible conversation. And so as you are listening to this podcast, I'm going to encourage you to just tune in, lean in, shut out the distractions. Her story of overcoming is a bit intense. She is someone who has a heart for helping others improve their lives. And because of that, she's so willing to be open, to be vulnerable, and to share things that most people won't. And she's willing to go a bit deeper than just staying on the surface and staying shallow. So, Sabrina, thank you so much for gracing us with your time and your story today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be shared. This is how we learn.
I completely agree. So first, why don't you start by telling us who you are, what you do, and who you serve in your business?
Of course. I found out how we met, by the way. Divian,
yes. Thank you, Divian. I'm sure he'll listen to this. I'll know it's coming. See, and that's the thing. We got connected by someone in a whole nother country. And we're on opposite. Well, you're half a country away from me. So I just love what virtual is doing for us these days.
It's crazy, for sure. What was your question?
Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself. So who you are, what you do, and who you serve in your business today.
Yeah. So Sabrina Victoria, I run a kick-ass all-female community called Her Nation. I'm looking to build the largest all-female community on the planet, all based around networking, collaborating. And the idea around everything that I do is you know something that I don't know, and I know something that you don't know. And the only way for us to both rise as humans is for us to share our knowings. So everything that I do revolves around curiosity, questions, staying in the state of a student at all times, and bringing people together, networking and community.
I think that's amazing. I love networking and collaborate. I'm new to the whole collaboration space this year. And I'm finding I really enjoy it because it makes sure that it's not all about me. And I love that. I'm thriving in it. It just makes me happy. So I love your passion and your drive for what you're creating. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So we're going to we're just going to dive right in. I would like for you to start out, and I'm just going to kind of give you the floor. I would love for you to share your story that you have gone through and overcame to get to where you are now, serving in this amazing space. And
so I'll give you
I'll do that.
I'll give you the short version, and then we can kind of unwrap and unravel however it seems to fit.
Perfect.
So I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I've been knocking on doors since I was 5 years old, and everything was relatively okay considering until I got pregnant at the age of 20 with no husband. Emphasis on the no husband part. Because Jehovah's Witnesses, as most people know, have very strict rules. So within 72 hours or so of me announcing that I was pregnant, I lost all communication with my entire family and my entire community, everything that I had ever known, basically. And side note, that happened because I decided to keep my baby. If I would have secretly aborted my baby, this journey never would have happened. It would have been a completely different journey. And I think that that is a key to so much of the jadedness, bitterness, and frustration that I really had to heal from as a female going through this journey. So long story short, within that realm, I had my child and I led a stereotypical single mom broke life. A rolling balance of a negative $172 in my bank account at any given time, car getting repoed out of the parking lot, eviction notices on my apartment door every other month, incredibly dark suicidal thoughts on a daily basis, dealing with postpartum. So all of the icky thoughts that you have as a mother about what you want to do to your child, but not knowing about postpartum, because again, having no community, no family to ask these questions to. So literally just thinking I was a psycho mother, just an unloving psycho mother for so much of that time period, sitting in a state of unworthiness, of sinfulness, and of darkness, just not in a good spot. I did that for 2 years. I have no idea how I did that. It's very confusing to me. I have no idea how I did that. However, right around that time, I met a man who had money. And I thought that that man was given to me by God, despite the red flags that were stapled all over his body. And I fell hook, line, and sinker with all of his manipulations. I was very young. I was very naive. Again, didn't have community to ask any questions to. And he coerced me to do all of these things by making him look shiny and pretty. Leave your place and move in with me. All you have to do is take care of the house. Leave your job. Come work for me. We're going to build an empire together. Side note, I'm going to pay you $250 a week, which will make sure that you still continue to stay broke, even though you're living in a nice house now, which means I couldn't pay my phone bill, couldn't pay my car note, couldn't do all these things. So then he kindly, took those things over, took over my phone, took over the car, bought the computer. And I turned around 8 years in and I have nothing. I own nothing. I have nothing. And nothing's in my name. Mental abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse times 10. And one day I just found myself on the floor, on the ground, in the bathroom, in the dark, having a complete mental breakdown, like the kind of mental breakdown where you're crying and screaming and yelling at the same time, where you just can't even breathe. You feel like your soul is being torn from your body. And I took up my phone and I did a Google search. I always say Google saved my life. I Googled, why is my boyfriend bullying me? Because I didn't know any other vernacular other than that. And the entire world of abuse just hit me right in the face. The entire world of codependency, high empathetic vibes, no voice, financial abuse, low self-esteem, no confidence. And I dove headfirst into the world of personal development. Soon after that, I opened up a secret bank account and a secret storage unit. I started 3 online secret businesses. And over the course of 4 years, I saved $50,000. And one random day, I took my son, our clothes, and my bicycle. And I started all over again from scratch with a mattress on the floor. And here I am today.
There's so much in that story that we can get back. We don't have time. we need like a whole, week just to sit down and have a conversation to unpack all that. And so one, I guess what I kind of want to do is recap a little bit of what I'm hearing and then kind of ask some questions to unpack a few things that I think will help listeners right now. So what I hear is being raised in a family around their faith system, something that doesn't sound like it's even supported by that belief system I don't know that belief system. I don't know the Jehovah's Witness arena. To hear you say, if I would have secretly aborted the baby, I wouldn't have been ostracized by my family for being an unwed mother.
Yep.
And that in itself just wrecks my heart. Because here's something I think is so important for the listeners. You and I have had a conversation about faith. Because I'm very strong in my faith. And that's not something you're ever going to go back to. And guess what? We can still collaborate and we can love each other and we can be kind to each other. And that's not something we have to even worry about. And I really want to encourage people with that. That is not a that should never be a barrier of loving people and being kind and supporting each other walking through these journeys. Next, you talk about the place you were with this new man coming into your life after your 2 years of postpartum and suicidal and all of those things, which so many of us have experienced. And if we're in a decent relationship, a good relationship, even if we're in a marriage, there are things so many of us don't understand about postpartum depression, don't know about what that does to our minds after having a child. And so to go through it alone, on your own, not knowing, I'm so grateful you're here.
Thank you. Me too.
That's amazing. Then you talked about meeting someone and being with them for 8 years. And you mentioned a lot of the red flags that I hope people are hearing right now. Go back and listen to all of them, because if you heard any of them and you were like, oh my gosh, that sounds like me, do some research. And to hear you then say, and this is the piece that I'm really hoping people can be like, oh, I can make a change. And I have a question around this. Google saved your life. And learned you were in a bad place, in a bad situation, and you secretly opened bank accounts, started businesses, and started setting yourself up to save yourself and your child.
Yep.
And you did it without family, without support, without people around you that encouraged and supported you behind the scenes. That is powerful. There are so many people out there who say, well, I don't have support. You had someone doing everything they could to hold you down and hold you back.
Yep.
And you did it. You broke free from that. And so I would like to maybe ask you some things around that piece, because I think that's going to free some people today. When you decided, I'm going to open a bank account, I'm going to start these businesses, can you maybe walk us through what that looked like for you? Because you still live in the same house, you still have this life together. How do you do it secretly? Because you're in the same mode of your survival mode, you're protecting yourself and your child, and you know you need out, and now you need to change and you need to do this. So what are some of the steps that you took to get to start this situation changing?
Yeah. So first, I was super scared. I think that's so important to recognize. I was so scared that he would find out, that I would be seen. So one of the issues that I love to talk about is this thought process of impossible. A lot of times when we're in a situation, we can't seem to get out of the situation. We tell ourselves that it's impossible. So because we're telling ourselves that it's impossible, you make yourself right, thus it's impossible, right? So I had to, while I was going through all of this learning and all of this education and reading all of these books and diving into this new me, I had to start changing my mindset from I can't to how can I? So how could I? If it was possible, how could I? And my situation was really tough because my abuser was very, very micromanaging over my world. He would ask to check my receipts for dates and times to make sure I said I was where I said I was. He told me that he had people watching me all the time. He had me convinced that I had a tracker on my phone, that I had a tracker on my car. So I was in complete like mode of anxiety at all times, all the time during this realm. Before that, it didn't matter because I was doing all of the things accordingly. But if you're trying to get out, you have to start to break some of those rules. So to be completely transparent, one of the very first things that I started to do was lie about where I was to see if he was really tracking me, because I really thought I was being tracked. So I would do things like go to Target. He would call me. He'd ask where I was, and I would say at Walmart just to see. And I knew that if he was like, nah, I could be like, oh, sorry, Target, Walmart. I don't know, like got him confused. So sorry. Like I would do stuff like that, stuff that I knew he would catch because he's very OCD and analytical with stuff like that. So he would totally have called me out for it. But then I would be able to like dig my way out of it pretty easily without looking like I was totally lying and being deceitful about the situation. So I started to do stuff like that probably within the first month or two of really starting to recognize that I needed to create a plan. Once I realized that he had no idea where I was, the whole thing was fake. He had no tracker. It was all a freaking lie just to like get to my head. That's what these people do. They're insane. That I then made a plan to go to a bank. I went to a bank that was 2 towns over. And I still remember the woman I talked to. Her name was Stephanie. I'll like never forget her. And I sat down with this woman and said, hey, I literally told her my story. I'm like, I'm trying to escape an abusive relationship. I've never, like the last time I opened a bank account was with my mom when I was like 10. I've never opened a bank account since then. I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please help me? And she went over all of the things, and I opened up my first little bank account and I got my little slips. And she also wound up giving me some sort of a deal where I got a safety deposit box for free. And for like a year or something like that, she signed me up for some special accounts. And so I was able to then put the notice for my, for the storage unit that I wound up getting a few months later, and my checks and anything else that was like I was keeping on the down low, I was able to put those into my safety deposit box at the bank.
I would have never thought, because that was going to be one of my questions as well. As soon as you said receipt for your bank account, I was like, where is she keeping it? How is she doing this? And so I never would have thought safety deposit box.
Yeah. So all I had to do was worry about hiding the key, which wasn't that hard. You know, I just hid it in the bottom of my sock drawer and like a dresser that he never would have looked at. And it was just a key I just shoved way in the back on the floor and just kept it there. And then whenever I needed to go visit or drop something off, you know, the key was accessible.
Wow. So knowing like, okay, so now that you have established a bank account, you have a storage unit, you're on this journey, what was maybe one of the things that started to change inside yourself? Besides, obviously you said changing your mindset in the beginning. What were some of the things you started? I guess maybe that's not the way I want to ask this. In the ways that you started changing, I guess, how did that impact your environment at home? Because I know when you make changes, things change around you. So how was that shift being received, I guess, in that environment as you were going through all of this?
Yeah. So I feel as if I am very grateful in how that version of me decided to do this. I don't know if I listened to something right off the bat or I just knew intuitively, but I never approached my partner with this thing that I was doing. I never told him about narcissism. I never told him about abuse. I never told him about the books I was reading or the finance books or nothing. I literally pretended like nothing at all was happening. And what I started to do is I was doing so much research on how these individuals operate, people with high narcissistic tendencies. And I started to use his tactics against him to help me. So one of the things that people with high narcissistic traits love is admiration. They love to be told that they're awesome. They love to be told that they're great. They love to be put on a pedestal. They love to have all the power. So I started to pour into him all of these like things that I knew that he desired as this type of individual. The other thing I had to learn how to do is just be two different people. I had to act this. I remember there was times where he would be so rude to me. And normally during the situation, he'd be so mean, so rude. The verbal like vomit that would come out of his mouth would literally stab someone. I mean, he's just so quick and so mean. He's just so mean. But as I started to learn, it no longer impacted me. So I had to get good at fake crying even in order to play the role of this is when I would normally break down and have like a nervous breakdown and be in the corner. And I had to like play act that, knowing in my head that like I was in complete control and I knew exactly what I was doing. And he was playing right along with it. So my power really started to grow in my confidence to be able to exit this situation because I was learning. I was constantly being a student. I was reading and I was watching him. And every situation that I was in, even if he did knock me down, not physically, but mentally and emotionally, knock me down, I would get up and I would think to myself, what did I just learn? What did he teach me? What can I do differently next time in order to not let him get to me the way he got to me? And so instead of verbally vomiting back, instead of giving up, instead of doing all the other things I could have done, I put myself in the mindset of on the job training. I was on the job training. He was training me on how to work with somebody who has high narcissistic vibes. And I was just training on the job. And that's the way that I really started to mentally be able to put up with this while I'm like building my finances, building my power, building my voice, starting an online community secretly. It was a lot. It was mentally and emotionally a lot, but I did.
That's incredible. I think, I guess I would want to know too, then at that point, you're making these shifts on how you approach him in these situations, which I can imagine was different than what you had done before. Did he ever verbalize that he recognized the changes in you that you were making towards the situations?
No, he had no idea.
Wow.
No idea. Until probably, remember, this took me 4 years.
That was going to be another question I asked. Yeah.
Yeah. So this took a really, really long time. And what I really want to hone in on, if you don't mind, is when I say I made 50 grand and then I escaped, yay. It wasn't like I just continuously made 50 grand and then I escaped. The journey to go from zero money to money was like a long journey of absolute ridiculousness because my mental capacity was changing, my power was changing, for lots of different reasons. But to get back to the money part, when I collected 6 grand, when I had 6 grand in my bank account, I wanted to low key brag. I wanted him to know that like I'm smart and I can do things.
Right.
Like I'm valuable because he had me just registering that I was not. So one day I'm on my bank account secretly. He wasn't home. I heard him come home. He's coming up the stairs and I wanted him to see it, but like knew he couldn't see it. And I just closed my computer screen, my laptop, like 1.5 seconds too late. Just ego totally got in the way. And he saw $6,000 in a bank account. And he totally freaked out. He cut off my allowance of $200 a week or my chore money, I used to call it. Turned that off for 6 months, totally freaked the F out as far as, taking advantage of him, skimming off the top, not giving back. How dare I? How could I possibly have money saved? If I have money saved, then I should be paying for stuff, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, like, this is the only way that I have to escape. He was keeping me poor on purpose. And this was the turning point for me. So when I first started saving money, I was not saving money to leave. I was saving money to have a choice to leave. I wanted to have a choice. At that point, when that happened, and he was so definitive about how dare you have money and you should have no money. The things that were coming out of his mouth for that 2 hours of him just berating me about this money, I started to register like, holy shit, what I thought was happening is actually happening. Because when you're in love with somebody, you want to be like, well, maybe he's not trying to like be financially abusive. Maybe he's not trying to keep me poor. Maybe he just like doesn't know. Maybe he like, you know what I mean? Like we're justifying it. But when he had that conversation, I had that freak out, this whole light bulb in my head went off and I was like, holy crap, this guy is literally trying to make sure that I have no money ever to keep me a prisoner. So fast forward 2 years, I started getting my little allowance again after 6 months. I continued to run my business. I had $13,000 in my account. Again, feeling on top of the world. I start looking at apartments. I call my son's father and I say, hey, son's father, I am planning on leaving my partner at the moment. I just wanted to let you know I'm looking for places. There's going to be some shifts, some changes. I'm hoping that like you can hang out with your son a little bit more often while I'm doing all these moves and changes. He's like, yeah, sure. No problem. Absolutely. Anything for you, girl power. A couple weeks later, he calls me. He's like, hey, I'm wondering if I can take our son on a camping trip. I was like, yeah, of course you can take him on a camping trip. That would be fantastic. It was summertime. And he takes him on a camping trip. Again, long story short, he never gave him back. He sent me an email saying, thank you so much for taking care of our son for the past decade or so. I got it from here. He had moved in with his new girlfriend who I didn't know where she lived and just literally disappeared. So I, of course, freaked the F out, call a lawyer. It took an entire year and $18,000 of my $13,000. Lawyer's fees in order to get back what was rightfully mine, full custody of my child. So now I'm negative $5,000 in credit card debt, no money, starting over from scratch again. And this is the thing with the story. It's like, I wanted to give up. Like I was working so hard on these side businesses. I was working so hard on this double life. I'm getting reamed out daily by my abuser, like literally daily, on the hour, every hour, just getting rammed because that's just the life that I had led. And I'm like, I had this light at the end of my tunnel. I'm like, okay, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. I just have to enjoy this just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. And the rug just keeps getting pulled from under me over and over again. And I remember sitting in my car, and this was a definitive time in my story. I'm sitting in my car. I'm at my lawyer's office. I had just paid my last $3,000 on my credit card because I had no money. And I was in my car crying, just like all drama, hitting the steering wheel. I had this flimsy piece of packet of papers with the new custody rules for my son of like, you can have him on the weekends and we're going to do a little drive-by and drop him off. And $18,000 for this like 17-page packet of child rules. And I'm just like, the universe hates me. The universe hates me. I'm getting punished for all of my sins. Mom and dad were right. All the things about religion going through my head, all of the things about God, me just being a horrible sinner. And I had to make a choice. Am I going to try again? Or am I going to just give up? And just, this is my life. People live with abusers.
Mhm.
Everywhere. I meet them everywhere because people hear my story and people direct message me. They meet me on the sidewalks and the streets. They hear my story on social media. And they live with abusers. They live with people exactly like who I used to live with. And I'm like, maybe this is just my destiny. Maybe this is just where I'm supposed to be for the rest of my life. And maybe I just have to be okay with that. And it was in that vehicle when I made a definitive choice that I was going to continue to try until.
Mm.
That was it. I was going to continue to try until. And this is why I did not want to 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later, I did not want to be sitting down on the couch, getting reamed out by this man, thinking to myself, what if I would have tried one more time? So I did it again. I put my head down, continued with my double life. I was getting child support at that point, which wasn't a lot, but it was something. And I just dove headfirst into my dreams, into my vision, into what I wanted. And year later or so, $31,000 was the bank account number. And I left, just walked out.
I just have chills. That is, I think it's, I don't even know. I don't have words. It's hard to get me speechless.
I just think it's so important. And the reason that I love to tell that part of the story is it's so much easier to not. But the daily knocking of authenticity is way heavier than moving past what seems hard. You know, like to do it again seemed just ridiculous and so heavy and so hard and so extra and so unnecessary. But I knew that if I woke up the next day and did not go forward with my plan, it would just weigh so heavy on my heart every day until the day I died. You know?
And how amazing that you were able to do that for yourself. Because it all comes from within.
Yep.
We have to look within ourselves to find the strength, the resilience, the tenacity, the drive, the motivation, all the things. Everything external is learning, like you said, right? You're learning externally. And then it's the internal choice that we all get every second of every day to make a shift.
Yeah.
Change something to save ourselves, to improve our life, to go after that thing, to choose that your value has nothing to do with someone else's opinion or someone else's brokenness.
Absolutely.
And too often we let the external world around us dictate our internal worth, how we see ourselves. And you chose you. And you chose to change that. You chose to do differently. And I just appreciate so much you sharing that story with us today. And I hope that it makes an impact on someone to choose themselves who right now maybe is hearing this that hasn't felt like they could choose that. And I truly believe that it will positively impact others to take actions for themselves.
Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us on today's podcast. What I do want to share is Sabrina's so gracious, you guys. So if you want to get connected with her, her links and information will be in the description below. You guys can find all that there. But something that she also has done is there's a link for her Empower Hour. 8 weeks for free.
Mm.
If you're looking to make a change, you want to network, you want to collaborate, you want to learn, you want to educate yourself, and she is someone that you find that you align with, click the link, get connected, and everything's down in there. So Sabrina, thank you also for that gracious gift and just being here and sharing with our community.
Of course. Thank you.
And that is the end of the podcast. This was amazing, very powerful, and I'm so grateful. My chest hurts. Trying to process all the things that you shared about this journey. And, you know, we all go through our traumas. We all have our experiences. And too often we tend to live in them as though they're right now and don't allow ourselves to heal and recover from it. We spend a lot of time finding coping mechanisms so we can cope with it and still bring it along. And this was a wonderful story of truly choosing difference and recovering from what you had gone through and continuing to walk that journey of recovering every day so that you can create something amazing.
100%. I mean, that's what it's all about, It's bringing people from that point of victimhood and blaming everybody to realizing that they have the power to live life differently,
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm so grateful. I will let you know. I don't have it up in front of me right now. I don't think. Oh, yes, I do. I do. I can tell you at least what month yours will be releasing. Next episodes. Around October, November is when your episode will release. So it'll be on my podcast. It'll be on my website. It'll be on YouTube. The uncut version will be on YouTube and on my website as well. You'll get an email with images and the links. And then after it launches, I'll run a couple headliners on my social media and tag you in it. So make sure you're connected with me on Instagram because it'll post from there onto Facebook. So that's where I have everyone get connected is on Instagram.
What's your Insta?
It is at Dina S. Adams. And then that way when I tag you, that way I can tag you in the story so you can share out the headliner as well when I share those out.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you again for being here and sharing. I appreciate you.
Yes. Who does all your back end work for you?
I do.
I love it.
I do it all right now. I'm still figuring out how I want it done. So I'm not at a place that I can hand it off and delegate it out to anybody yet. So I just do it myself.
Good for you. How can I help you? What do you need?
I am looking for collaborations this year, and I have one of the things that I do with other coaches who have programs is I do breakthrough coaching for coaches that don't offer it. So if people have 6, 8-week programs, DIY programs, all that kind of stuff, and they maybe do group coaching calls, but they don't do the breakthrough coaching, which is, they maybe focus more on the thing they're teaching, not so much the person that's getting stuck along the way. And so if there's anyone that you know of that might benefit from having an additional coach inside of their community to help the people who are getting stuck and not completing those programs to actually be able to break through some of that stuff and do that, that's something that I'm looking for this year. Is those collaborations.
How much do you charge for that?
It depends on the program they're doing, how much time they want, if they want just a couple group calls during the program, if they're wanting one-on-one availability. So we discuss that all and I do it based on their individual needs. So that's all.
Is the best thing
depending on what they want.
Is the best thing to give them your website, or how do you like a warm connection call? Or
I usually prefer an email introduction with both of us. If you can do that, my website's in the process of being revamped. I just met with my web developer today, and it's been in the works for a couple of weeks because there's some changes that I'm making in my company and in my business and my branding. And so we're in the process of revamping. So this offer is not on my website. In fact, most of my offers are not on my website.
Coach.
I give this though on YouTube, since this is part of the UNCUT conversation. It'll be all updated by then. But yeah,
yes.
I prefer to meet with people one-on-one if that's something they're interested in. So we can talk about what exactly they're looking for. So we make sure, one, it's a good fit. And then depending on, some people will want it for a 6-month program. And so it'll look very different than if someone wants it for a 6-week program. Okay. And what their needs are and what they think this will do for their community, what they want it to do for their community. So I personalize it for each person as I'm adding this as a new service this year. Mm-hmm. Because I've spent the last 7 years being that person in every single program and group that I've been a part of. So I end up with like 10, 20 people inside of a community, and I'm meeting with them one-on-one, and I'm coaching them on, I'm doing all these things. And I'm like, why am I not charging for this for other coaches and offering this as a service when I do this all the time? And literally 90% of my time was being filled with doing this for other people in their communities. And I wasn't finding I was having enough time to actually work with my own clients.
Wait a minute. So like you would be like in my group, somebody would have an issue, and then the host is allowing you to sit there and do a breakthrough, and you're just doing it for free, like something like that?
It was find an accountability partner. Great. We'll find an accountability partner. We would go through the group coaching, but then people were getting stuck outside of what the program was offering.
Got it.
And the group coaching, they were asking these questions, but the person wasn't able to coach at that capacity. They were focused on what they offer and how they serve. And so when we would get on our accountability calls, I would be sharing that. Or someone would share in the group chat, like, this was happening and I asked this question, and they would say, ask these questions in the group. Other people can help too. I'm it's a community thing too. So I would be answering and supporting through that. And then people would reach out to me, and I would even have, in some of the groups, the coaches were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Dina helped this person." And they would give me kudos for helping their people. And I said, why am I not recently in the last couple of months? I was like, why am I not offering this as a service for those communities that if they're coaching clients through things that are not what I do? So a lot of it was I was learning new skills. I have to go. I have 1 minute and then I have to start another podcast. But say I'm learning about funnels. I'm learning about web design. I'm learning about some technical aspect, or I'm learning about business management or something along those lines. Those coaches only teach the expertise that they know. They don't know how to actually coach someone through the stuck stuff that is rooted deep in them, that's keeping them stuck from increasing their dollar or adding this new thing to their business. And so I like to work with people who are walking people through these things, but don't actually coach at that deeper level. So they have a more opportunity to have more of their clients achieve completion in those programs. A lot of people fall off because they can't get the answer they need in the group coaching. They're not willing or able to answer those questions or help them through that piece because that's not their expertise. And so I want to work with coaches and that are offering those types of programs that they're wanting to increase engagement with their clients and get them to be able to finish these programs, but they need someone to do that piece for them.
Beautiful. I love that. Very cool. I'm also going to send you a link to possibly hang out on a 16-hour conference that I have going on April 22nd. Huge collaboration, 23 female hosts and over 100 panelists. So I'm looking for female panelists that want to go in, live QA, share some of the knowings that you know within an awesome community here at Her Nation. So I'll send you that link if it works for you. The time is and the date. I would love for you to join us. And then I'll put this in my CRM as far as, what you do and who you're looking for. And as I come across things, I will link you up.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. And if there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And we'll continue to stay connected.
Beautiful. You're the best.
All right. Take care. We'll talk to you later. Bye.